All right, I'll just go ahead and start. I've got a long, I built this for like 45 minutes, so I'm going to try to squeeze it down. I'll talk real fast. So I used to work at NASA. I helped build their security operations center. I also did some time at Mandiant, hard time, and then went back to NASA for a little while. But now I work at Cisco Umbrella, which we used to be OpenDNS, and it was purchased by Cisco. So I'm talking about things like behavior. So this is how you might watch some behavior of visiting a website. You see where people go, where they click, et cetera, et cetera. You might also look for things like, I think of it like this, like anomaly detection. There's a bunch of people walking, and all of a sudden there's some weird, unpredictable, unsimilar behavior. You're looking for that kind of thing. But what I'm doing is not yet as cool as that, but I'm trying. There's some current detection methods that we have. I'm just talking about a couple overview here. IDS, antivirus, we've got people. IDS is based on signatures, so it's based on things you know already. With you can maybe be a little bit predictive if you do some regular expression stuff. You get things like this, like you're looking for a certain kind of content in something, trying to find, in this case, remote include vulnerability. Requires human intervention, so you've got to work with these things from the signatures. You got to keep them up to date and adjust them quite a bit. It catches known threats, so like I said, it's not going to catch things that you don't know about. So it's not really predictive. Antivirus, of course, same thing. Uses the signatures based on known malware variants or file variants. It's host-based. It can be host-based. Yeah. So we're working with things like CSV files. You may, if you do this kind of work, which you probably do, sales. Sorry, they give you CSV files, or even worse, Excel files. You might get that. We're going to work with PCAPs, Active Directory logs. I touched on this briefly. Proxy logs, DNS logs, all kinds of things. And I'm also going to do streaming logs. So say you get that awful CSV file, and it's small enough to work with. You can do certain things just to kind of get an idea of what you're seeing in that specific time. You can make a pivot table, and you can I talk faster than I do. And you can count the number of times a domain's been visited, and then you could go graph that in a second. Takes a while, You can get an idea of like what the bandwidth looks like for certain domains, things like that. But we want to find normal. So because we want to find normal so we can get rid of normal, basically. So we can find the anomalies and also get an idea of what weird stuff is going on in the network. So how do you find it? Can you find it? In this example, you're looking at a bunch of domains that look really bizarre. I mean, if you saw this in your network, you would probably freak out. It's a bunch of DNS tunneling traffic. Of course, if you have, standard, just seeing regular domains go by, and then maybe there's one weird one, how do you find that without signature detection? Or how do you find that in a different way, And how do you find that in this? And of course, you're probably not watching the traffic go like this. The traffic's just going, and you have something monitoring it and hopefully processing through it. But how do you find it? Or how do you find it in this CSV? So I got this my first attempt is I'll count the number of times that a domain has been seen. And so in this case, I've got Facebook, a bunch of Facebook domains that I'm interested in. Maybe I'm not interested, but as an example, so I count the number of Facebook subdomains. I can graph that to get an idea of the bandwidth like I showed before. I can count other domains. I can remove normal from that and look at the domains that are visited just one time. And so far, we're doing all this manually, but let's just keep going. So I've got this list of just one time, maybe 2 times or less, or 3 times or less would be good, but let's go with 1 for now. And we'll grab a random selection from this list of stuff. So in this case, I've got some highlighted domains. These are things I just have a gut feeling they're probably fine, like military.com. Not that it's fine, but it's a thing. So I'm going to remove those. And then I've got these other ones I'm a little more curious about, but I feel pretty good about them. I'm not sure about MrSteam.com, but it's okay. I'm going to remove it. I'll look at this Medicare supplement. Maybe I go visit these sites using some way, and I see it's a Medicare site. Doesn't mean it's not compromised or anything, but I'm just go with my gut feeling as an analyst, you know. It's healthcare, so I cross it off. This site, it has a 5 in it. It looks weird. It's got a default Apache site, so kind of suspicious. Go look it up. I'm seeing some stuff maybe with Sonic Wall, and my gut says it's fine for now. I mean, maybe it's bad, but I'm trying to go through a bunch of domains real fast. This one is a parenting blog, so I'm not too threatened by it. Unable to connect to this. There's no HTTP content. There might be other stuff. You may do other scans or something. I look it up. It's a Microsoft relation thing. Another one of those things seems to be some kind of phone spam. I don't really care. Maybe I'm looking for something else. So then I've got this one. No content. Look it up. I've got some more information. ThreatCrowd has something, but I'm not really getting a lot of hits. Maybe I do some other analysis. I just don't care. Then there's this last domain, notinpest.net, same thing. I do some searches. I see that there are some files associated with it, and it's got some bad stuff. It steals information. It does persistence. You know, it's got some extensions that look like Locky, actually. You can see using OpenDNS network stuff, you can see there's a spike in traffic all of a sudden, whereas before there was nothing. So we got one, and we can continue on with our day. It's a long process. So it's mostly manual, requires expertise, so you have to have that gut feeling, you know, that this is fine or this is wrong or something like that. And you have other indicators too. Maybe you do API calls to various servers and stuff like that. But ultimately, it comes down to you just eyeballing it. So I'm hoping to automate things a little more. So that's what I've been working on, automating a lot of that process. What do we automate? We want to auto-clean logs and network streams, so you don't want to have to go through it yourself and write scripts every single time you get a new log file. Auto-process that stuff. Find ways to remove that normal, like more efficient ways. Do some categorization. So categorization obviously is very important to behavioral analysis if you want to know what's going on. Not just regular categorization, but like security categorization as well. And save it to a workable database of some sort or something that you can work with so you can do time series analysis. This is a lot of stuff that I do. And maybe do some visualization because other people want to look at it too. So it's all different. In this case, I've got some DNS logs. We've got these different timestamp formats. I get DNS logs all the time from customers, from our resolvers, from all over the place, and it's different. Items are in different locations. You still have to do some manual work initially, and you know, when I show you later on all the stuff I've built, I've got all that code available publicly, so you can go in, but you might still have to move things around just a little bit. Got Active Directory. I mean, that's looks nice to the eye, but it's not really easy for managing with Python, which is where I do everything in. You got system logs, HTTP logs, everything is very different. So anyway, the manual process, I think, needs to go away. So you got to use what makes sense to you. If you use Excel, like in this example, this is a really large file I'm trying to open, like 500 megabytes or so, which isn't that large, but it wanted to import it into multiple worksheets, and Excel's running at 100%, and then at this point, you want to quit Excel. You want to force quit it, and then move on to something else because it's not going to work. So don't use that. You can use R, and I would like to use R a little more. It's a lot faster, but I've been using Python, and I only have enough space for one programming language at a time. So I'm using a lot of libraries like Matplot for initial studies of stuff, Pandas for data stuff, and Plotly. I used Plotly for some graphing things, and then I moved on to D3, used some D3 wrappers like C3. I use something called metric graphics JavaScript thing. It's all in my documentation. There's some tools I use for open source for taking that data and working with it to find the weird stuff. Like PyASN is an offline ASN lookup. I tried to make it so as much as possible is offline or something that everyone can do. Unfortunately, I'm still using some things that aren't, but I'll get to that. So PyASN, you can just apply. You apply the domain. It gives you the IP and the ASN that exists on, and you can do things with that which I show in a second. You can do Python whois, which is like a whois lookup thing. You can use networkx to combine the things you find. So in this, you'll see I'm using PyASN to go the domain to the IP to the ASN, and then I can create like a graph, you know. And that's a very simple graph, and it can get more complex, like this kind of thing, or more prettier, I guess. And you can arrange it in all sorts of ways. I'm using some paid tools because, you know, yeah. I'm using OpenDNS since I work there. It's nice, and this isn't a vendor talk, but I'm using it as an example because it has some good categorization and security categorization. So if you take a domain and like with this, you can search it. There's an API which I use heavily, but you can search a domain. You can see all the traffic, who owns the domain, the passive DNS information, a whole bunch of things that you can pivot off of and find information from. It's not the entire internet, but it's about 3% of the internet, so you get a good idea of what's going on. I'm using VirusTotal, and this is something you use for free, but if you're using API, it's only 4 requests per minute. But in this example, you can see like if I put in a domain, that same domain, I'm not sure why I chose that one, but you get a bunch of hits for samples associated with that domain, and then you can go pull those down, and you can get some other information that you can, in the API, you can grab all of this and work with it as you need. So, talk about creating a baseline. First, I talked about the counting things, and I'm going to remove what I think is popular. So I'll start with this data from OpenDNS. I took some data from one of the resolvers, and looking at it, it looks like this. It's just a bunch of stuff. You can see there's domains in there, and there's time to lives, there's the record type, a record, whatever, IP, ASN. We'll go ahead and try it though. So over 10 times, I'm going to write to a file called normaltraffic.txt. Under 3 times, write to suspicioustraffic.txt. And it's only 9 minutes of data. So it's not a lot of data, but it's a lot of domains, over 664,000. When I get it, I have this suspicious traffic, which is 6.4 megabytes, and normal is 247 kilobytes. So it really didn't help a lot, but maybe it did a little bit. If you look at the normal traffic, you do get an idea of normal traffic. You see a lot of Google, DNS, you know, and network time protocol stuff. And the suspicious, you see things that are more suspicious, like this winestyle.ru, a Russian site, and anything Russian, I'm suspicious right away. So I don't know, I go look at that domain traffic. To me, it doesn't look like anything crazy is going on, just based on eyeballing it. I'm still doing this manually, of course. I look at the domain, and it's not really much going on. But maybe there's this other domain here, this .kz domain, suspicious. Go look at it, and the traffic has kind of normalized, but I mean, OpenDNS, it's blocked for Locky, being a dropper for Locky. And then you go to the page, it's just a takedown page, or taken down or removed page. But all right, so I have a better idea, which is to use a top domains list. So Alexa used to, until recently, provide the top 1 million domains that people visit in the world, and then they started charging for it. So Cisco decided, well, OpenDNS, we had all that data, why don't we just give it to people for free? So, I mean, you can do certain things, like you can search Wikipedia, and you can scrape this and pull the top domains and things like that. But if you want to get the free one, there's, got a little ahead of myself. It's coming. You could go download basically a CSV with a domain and a count of visits over a certain amount of time. I think it's updated maybe every day, things like that. And so I decided to go ahead and use that. And I just basically open it and assign it to a list, which I then reference when I'm running through all the domains in my whatever file or my streaming network traffic. I'll skip that Python stuff. When I use that, I run my stuff through there, and I have two files, in top 1 million.txt and not in top 1 million. And it's still bigger, not in top 1 million. But I get a good result on the left side is the in, a lot of Google normal stuff. On the right side, a lot of potentially suspicious stuff. It's still a huge list of domains you've got to go through and look at. So there's got to be other things that you apply to it. But I've cut out a huge chunk of stuff. So it's been reduced. Then we can do some security categorizations just to add on to this. Usually you need to do a third-party service because it's being categorized as something bad. In this case, looking at stuff, I can see there's a bunch of botnet, dynamic DNS. It's labeled that way through whatever system. I pulled this in from VirusTotal and from OpenDNS. If you get a lot of blank, though, so you might need to use multiple third parties. You can also do the bandwidth just to get an idea of what the traffic looks like on a normal day. But the problem is, I'm sorry to do that to you, but it's random data from multiple sources. It's 9 minutes of data from a resolver. So it's all over the world. So it's hard to do behavioral analysis on that. So we're going to narrow it. We're going to try with one organization. I think this is just one log file. Looking at it, it's like it's a lot of lines of text. I think it's 24 hours. And looking at it, you can see there's the time and there's these domains. There's a lot of DirecTV in there. I don't know why, but anyway, I might go and manually modify that and clean out all those DirecTV domains, and I'll go through it again and kind of keep cleaning it. I'm still doing this manually, by the way. And then I get down to this list of domains. They're just kind of minimum domains, like whatever. And I can go look at those, and I've got some mistakes in there, like a com and a dot, but whatever. You can see I've got 666 views to Yahoo. Anyway, I can remove that. I have defcon.org at the end, which is cool. But anyways, it took a little while to do that kind of thing. So then I wanted to do a streaming situation where I'm capturing traffic and running stuff automatically on this. So at first I ran TCP dump on my home system attached to a network tap, and I'm just watching the traffic and running it to TCP dump log, and it looks like this. You know, it's a mess, but there are domains there and there's timestamps. So those are the things that I'm interested in. So I pull those out, and I can see a bunch of, I do my top domain situation, and I'm down to the ones. And then I can find a little more suspicious activity, kind of doing a weird graph, but I can see that there's some domains or IP. I'm also visiting IPs because TCP dump, but you can see that there's some that are more suspicious, but like this one, there's a lot of visits to private internet access, which is a VPN provider I use. But if you see that in your network and you're not expecting it, or maybe that's suspicious, you can at least get an idea of what's going on within this time frame. And that's me when I don't want to be watched, because I'm watching myself. You can do things like compare activity, looking at, still using that TCP dump data, and this is kind of an awkward graph, but you can get an idea. This is a day, so 0 to 24 hours, and you can, if you get enough of this, you can get an idea of when I might be home or what I might be doing. You get the advantage of knowing, because I'm telling you what I did. I was at a concert, but it's kind of flat. There's someone else in my house, so I don't know if the cats go online, but they might. But anyway, but if you keep on going, you can kind of get an idea of when I might be at work, when I might be home. Looking at each individual one doesn't give you a lot, but spread out, it gives you something. The color changed because I did a different server to process this. But so I went out of town. Here it's kind of quiet, and then I'm out of town. That looks much more like what I'd like to see in a general graph. And then I'm home right there, continuing on at work. I don't know why it looks so weird, because I was learning. I'm at a concert again, and then I'm home because Netflix spikes up. I'm too pumped up from the concert. Then you can kind of look at it more like this. This is a little bit better version, but you can get an idea of, maybe you can see the patterns of my traffic. It's still not really giving you behavior, but I mean behavior of what I'm visiting and where I'm going, but you might be getting an idea of when I'm going there. So then I decided TCP dump is difficult for this. I'm going to try using a DNS server on my network. So I installed Pi-hole on a Linux server. And started routing my log files off to a place I could analyze them just every day, you know. And it goes from January 29th. I didn't update it, but last time I updated it was July 18th. I was going to do it last night, but so I'm saving this stuff to a database. In my case, I'm using MongoDB, and when I insert them manually, of course, you can set this to do automatic. But when it's manually being inserted, it just prints out what it's doing, and then you can present it in multiple ways. Like I tried a few different options, like using InfluxDB, which is a time series database, and Grafana to display stuff. I've also used Logstash to Elasticsearch. The Grafana requires a lot of configuration. But then the primary thing I'm using now is doing custom stuff with Flask and D3 and Plotly. So if you use InfluxDB, you can get really pretty graphs like this, for time series. Actually, and you can get a really good idea of, like, a better idea of when I'm home and when I'm doing things, or when maybe not I'm home, maybe 1,000 people are at work and what they're doing and when. You could do Kibana via Elasticsearch, so you can search things and you can build custom queries in Logstash, and then you can, of course, create cool graphs to get an idea. So now I'm getting into the categorization of things, so using to find out what are the primary kind of categories that I visit on my network or in the network. You can look at locations. People love maps. So, but maybe you're expecting everything to go to the US or to somewhere in Europe, and it's all going to China, or you have one little domain to China, and it's something interesting to look at. So the custom thing, though, I'm using scripts to auto-send data into the MongoDB database, and then I'm using Flask to auto-process from that MongoDB, and then it serves the content. So I can do things like this, like I can do my count of requests, and I can kind of narrow down. And this is pretty ugly, but you can get the idea of where it's headed. You can do some security categorization here, like it's 40% not determined. This is kind of a bad one too, but a lot of whitelisted domains. Actually, in this case, I didn't have any blacklisted domains out of my security categorization, so domains that I thought were bad. This is more interesting. You can do the investigate categories. You've got this percentage of software technology, this percentage of news media, and you can go with virus total categories, which provides a lot more information. I guess they have a better way of categorizing. I'm trying to find an open source source of categorization that is wider, that is also freer. But then I thought it'd be really interesting if I could make a timeline of, instead of domains visited on a graph, a timeline of categories. So I started taking those domains and capturing the category and then putting it to a time and getting things like this. So I got the count, 2 search engines at that time. I've got 6 podcasts at that time, and so on like that. So now then I put that into a kind of ugly graph, but you can get an idea. You could sort of follow along with my daily whatever, like, oh, between this time and this time, there's a lot of this activity. Between this time, there's a lot of this activity. So if you're looking at more than just one person, you might actually be able to see, and even with just one person, you might be able to see a lot of interesting things. And then the initial thing I made was this kind of thing where you could get a count of where you visited and a graph of things and a website and a little time series thing and all that stuff. There's not found because there's no bad traffic in that example. But if there was, there'd be a little spike in the traffic or the domain that was visited or the IP that was visited. Then I started building this site, this Flask thing, and it's better looking than this. Actually, I'll show you in a moment. But I'll just show you that. You can do some category mapping. You can map. This is kind of weird, but you've got Grumpy Cat is the node, but you can say like PayPal to the. Well, actually, this is to the ASN to the IP, but you could draw graphs, big graphs of these domains are tied to this category, so you can get an idea of what's going on. It's an interesting way to look at the environment, and it could look like this. So I'm sorry, it's pretty grainy, but oh, in this case, I'm actually looking at subdomains. So in that bottom one, it's some domain called libsyn.com, and I've got all the subdomains tied to it. So that can be kind of useful when tied together. This looks terrible, so let's ignore that. You can do just mapping. So I'll show you some of this most recent stuff that I've been doing. Let's see here. So I'm going to start my MongoDB. And I'll start my little Flask site. I haven't really optimized it, so be prepared for slowness. Still a slowness. It's hard to do with a microphone. So you can do things like you can do a sort of a combined thing of domains in and not in top domains, a security category situation over here, or you can do a timeline of security categories. So this is all the domains in my group. This is just in the top domains, and this is not in top domains. You see I've got 2 bad domains right here. So on that date, I visited 2 places that were known bad by at least 1 or 2 third parties that I'm using. And you can kind of get a bandwidth view over here. You can get things like, I'll load this once on a different tab. It's a map. It's a little slower. You can do things like look at all the domains in the top 1 million, and then you can sort by things and look at the ASNs, and you can search by status, which might be -1. Oh, there's none. There's no bad domains in this particular list. In the not top 1 million, though. Well, maybe that's not the search field I have, but you can search. You can set it up to do things like that. You can build like maps like this, where you can, in this particular case, and I actually just ran this before this presentation, again on my data. If there were blocked domains or bad domains or things that are suspicious, they pop up as red, and you can click on them and get some more information. And you can do things like category metrics. This is a little bit messed up at the moment, but you can get an idea of the categories I'm visiting in pie chart form or other form. And then this is a little more interesting. So here's the tree of categories. So you can click on those, and you can drill down into the domain based on the category that's been seen inside the environment. So that's kind of sort of a really quick introduction to that part. Then I've got some other stuff too. So just to talk about it real quick, I've got some, just if you want to take PCAPs and you want to break them apart and play with them, and you can open them up in Wireshark and look at the stuff. So, it looks like this. I'm sure you're all familiar. Look at the HTTP traffic, and you can follow this and see what's happening here. So in this case, someone's posting some email and password information in this PCAP. If you have a signature, like a IDS signature, it might catch this HTTP post or something like that. But you can also run the scripts are against this kind of stuff, against the network traffic, and pull out all the gets and all the posts, and you can write stuff that is automatically looking for suspicious things like this. Scrolling down, and you can see that there's a better way to get this out than just opening things in Wireshark. And you can do things like map to, I actually skipped it before the video was over. Do Active Directory logs, which is a little interesting. I only had a slice of Active Directory logs from a location, but I played with it a little bit, and this is, all right, this is the first attempt, but you can do more things like this, where you can do the time series of when things are failing and when people are logging in, when they aren't logging in, and it might look like this, like you pull out your logs and you get them the way you need them to be, and then you can run this Python script, which is included to generate this data. And then you can go look at it and see if it's stuff that you're expecting, like when are accounts logging off, when are they logging on, when do they fail to log on, things like that. And then you can do the same thing with, I thought it it would be interesting to try it with auth log analysis. And this is just a really super simple one. So you can see, like, you know, I just grabbed the auth logs from one of my servers up to today, and just to see, I only pulled the invalid SSH login attempts to get the idea of the behavior of what's going on. It's a really loose term behavior right there, but you can grab more stuff out of those logs. And then I thought actually what would be more interesting is if you have a log file or you have streaming data and you want to capture traffic and see traffic based on all the clients inside that network. So in this example, so I have the logs from an InfoBlocks device, and it looks really messy. I don't know why it looks that way, but it's just, you know, client. You can see there's a client IP, and then where they visited, and then some other information, which is good, but not what I'm using right now. So if I process those, it'll process through all the different clients it sees, and then it creates this HTML file for me that I can go use. And I can see, you know, I just put it, this is just a simple example, but I put it like a bandwidth graph of each individual client so I can get an idea of what's going on. And then I could do further processing on that. So I put all this on this GitHub that everyone can see. And kind of went through that already. I won't give you the demo. This is a more extreme example, a much, much larger log file of all those clients. So I've written a lot of code for this. And it doesn't look as bad as this anymore. I've fixed it up a little bit, cleaned it up, made it a little nicer. I'm, you know, you know how it is. So I'll just skip ahead. Some things to think about. It's not a perfect solution. I mean, intrusion detection, AV, and user awareness, of course, always still have their place. And this is an ongoing process. I mean, I haven't even touched on machine learning yet because I haven't been touched by machine learning yet. And I'm still learning. But I hope that I could make this something kind of intelligent. It could decrease the work you have to do, and that's the dream. I'm pretty sure that we'll all, if you do analyst work, 10, 20 years we'll be sysadmins again because machines will be doing all the work for us. Can provide more visibility into your network because there's so much happening that you don't know about. And it could possibly alert you to anomalies before anything else. If you don't want to be watched, just a disclaimer because I love privacy. You know, use a VPN on your network. You know, in the US they have a thing now so the ISPs can watch our data and use it for, they can sell it to advertisers. So it's like, you know, you don't want to be watched. Use your own DNS server and send it through that VPN. And you can learn a lot about who you're watching. But here's the GitHub's up here. Cat outline has all my stuff in it. So I've got a personal email, I got a work email. You can see all these slides as you saw them today at that place. And then there's my Twitter. So, any questions? It is a work in progress. So if you're interested, keep track. Feel free to contribute. I have a lot more work to do, but it's fun.
Any questions? A quick one. Oh, okay. I think that's it.